Hey, yo, what's going on, good people? It's your boy Tez, back at you with another Eden Zero chapter discussion, review, breakdown, whatever you want to call this for chapter 136. But just a heads up, if you did not know already, the Eden Zero anime has started. And yes, I will also be talking about that, so be on the lookout for that. I've got everything set up, just hadn't got done to watching it. As I've talked about it in the beginning, I'm just going to compare and contrast to how the manga held up into getting turned into the anime. But yo, let's get into this 136 entitled Goodwin. So after meeting Goodwin, things kind of take a turn as we find out that this big cat is actually a fan of Rebecca as in her BQ channel. And I'm like, I was not expecting this. Like, he's literally beaming with joy at the fact that he can see his favorite BQber. And I mean, he says she is, and I quote, the best BQber. Nobody is like her. He adores her. And I'm just like, I wasn't expecting this. I was not expecting this. And then you see Wise and Hamura kind of like off to the side throwing subtle shade, like he has a certain taste in entertainment, or his taste in entertainment can be who knows, because they're just like, they don't think Rebecca is the best BQber. Like, she probably isn't. I mean, Couchpo apparently is one of the most amazing BQbers. You know, we ship Couchpo around this place, you know, just for what it is. But you kind of can't blame Big Fella. I mean, look at Rebecca. And everyone's surprised, even his crew, our crew, like no one saw this coming. And then Ibaraki's kind of like, hold on, boss. Basically, you've been spending our funds funneling money into, he called her a bimbo, but you know, this B-cuber chick. And he was like, hold on, no, it's been my money, so don't worry about it. Stay in your place. I got this. I was like, man, I literally thought he was gonna do something to Ibaraki for trying to like come at him like this, but he didn't. So I was like, all right, cool, it's all right. But then things shift back over to Laguna, because we find some things out about Laguna in this chapter. Not a lot, but it's just some small things that might be starting to piece together Laguna as a whole. Or this might actually be how we find more of Laguna's backstory flushed out. Everything that's going to be happening between now, what takes place with Nero, Shura, Temple, all this stuff, and you know, bam. But we find out he actually was a part of this rebellion or the group that Goodwin runs, and he abandoned them, which is why they have all this hostility towards him. And why in the last chapter, Ibaraki was like, oh, so yeah, you want to see boss, but boss told me if I were to see you, I gotta let that thing sing in your direction. It just can't be any way, but I gotta do my job. So that was all fine and dandy. And then they start to try and tell him, like, you know, I think we have a chance at crushing Shura as long as it's, you know, this guy Shiki. And he kind of seems taken back by it, but Rebecca says, you know, at least can you just hear us out? And then he gives her this like big anime grin and a thumbs up, like, anything for you, you know, I'll take a listen. And that's when Shiki, still as happy-go-lucky as he is, you know, trying to make friends, Hamura chimes in like, yo, you might want to keep your guard up, for the simple fact that these people aren't to be taken lightly. Like, she can sense a high level of ether inside of Goodwin. And he was like, oh, that's fine. It's like, to his dismay, I'm like, oh, he turned this around quite indifferently from any other time. He was like, it's a good thing, he claims. It's good to have powerful allies. And she's just kind of like, what are we gonna do with you? And there's nothing you can do with Shiki. Shiki thinks everyone who's your friend adjacent, if you're a friend of my friend is my friend. That's the best way to put it. Now, back on the ship, we find out that the others were listening in through Pino. Jesus, get the words together. They were listening in through Pino as to what was everything that was going on, being said, monitoring everyone's vitals. They even noted that Rebecca's, like, I think it was her serotonin levels, not serotonin, one of her levels had spiked, just for the simple fact that, you know, well, she did just discover she had a fan. And then we also get the twins telling us, they're rehashing basically everything. Like, I believe Colleen knew more than Chris did. Like, also, Chris confirmed for himself as letting us know this is actually where Lagoon is from, the Io Cosmos. And she was like, oh, you didn't know? I had a random wrestling reference. Oh, you didn't know? Just popping up in my head. But so when we get back to the everything that's going on there, there's this galaxy-wide news announcement that goes out, but this was something very serious and drastic, as everything that had previously happened with all the robots and the whole embargo about, yo, all the robots are going to be taken out and destroyed. You hear about androids trying to leave, the distaste and displeasure and the rating of Temple being very low from the public eye. You hear about how the robot, manufacturers and things, like their value is going down because people can no longer trust them. You got the skeptics saying, oh, this is the end of times, in relation to how, like, oh, it's just the gods, it's the will of the gods. All these things that you usually hear, like even in our real world, when things hit, when the storm hits, like, oh, it's always this stuff, especially if it's something mass wide, like with our current situation with Corona. There was a lot of everything. And anytime you turn to the news, it's that same similar situation. But then we also get Labalia. She shows up. Like, I didn't even think she was needed. She was kind of just like, oh, I think it'd be so bad, like, if the robots didn't, exist and blah blah blah. I'm like, why were you even needed, Labalia? Let's just go away. Just go back to where you are. But before the news closed out, it left this open-ended question: if the robots were to disappear in this, cosmos, like, what would the humans be left to do? I believe their society not much more different than our own currently in times. Like, if a lot of things that have become automated cease to be automated, that we have made all these advancements towards, what happens to society? Because a lot of these things people still don't know how to do. Like, how do we thrive without the things that we've grown accustomed to? So that was like, that, man, that's kind of hard hitting. That's kind of deep. That hits way deeper than what I thought this manga would actually bring something like that. Or that's just my mind putting two and two compared to the real world to this together. But then we get back into Goodwin's hideout and we finally get the details about the All Link, which I was like, yes, finally some information about whatever the hell this thing is. So in short, there's an ocean in the IO cosmos. So basically it is a sea in a sense as far as this galaxy, but once it hits high tide, all the ether and electricity kind of merge together and combine, and it links all the networks in this planet. Now I can see how with something like that, Ziggy could do something dangerous, Shura can do something dangerous. It's not a good thing, no matter who has their hands on it, unless the person using it is a just person, which is why it is one of Temple's greatest weapons. But it's a weapon that can only be relied upon every couple of years, as they said. What will happen when the All Link actually goes up in 3 days? 3 days, mind you, that's when it's actually supposed to happen. Now, out of the 7, I'm trying to think, how did the 7 days, like they have 4 days left to do everything, or they don't have 4 days? Who knows? But yeah, so once all that information has been relayed, one of the grunts who was out and about led some of the Imperials back to the hideout as they were doing the droid hunts. Like, there is a thing to get rid of all the machines, all the androids, no matter what it is, and he runs them right back into the base. I'm like, they were like, he panicked, and probably he saw them and panicked and led them back here. He could have done anything else, or he might have just, if he didn't panic, he probably would have just walked away. He's not a robot. I believe he was just an alien. But he leads them back to the base, and before anything else can happen, the crew springs into action. And I mean, like, it was impressive the way they sprung into action. You see Shiki charging up his hand, pulling everybody up to the sky, Hamura slashing people, Wise configuring a gun, and like, I can't tell how fast it was, but he didn't have this gun at first. I don't know what he used to rebuild this gun. That's impressive, unless he's wearing the arsenal armor in, his personal armor, and turned it into a gun slightly, whatever the case. And we even see Rebecca. Now that was the one that took me by surprise. I'm like, yo, she's actually learned how to activate Leaper, or whatever the foot portion of her gear is, because I know there's more to her gear than just feet. I gotta be more to it than just feet. It can't just be feet. For now, it's just feet. But you actually see the lines on the side of her feet. I was like, my girl has finally learned how to use her powers. And everyone's like, yo, who are these dudes? Like, they're powerful, which makes Goodwin think again about what Laguna said. If it's him, he might be the one to defeat Shura. Like, he uses the same powers as Shura. And it was a small flex in power. Like, it wasn't even anything grand. It wasn't even anything amazing. This was a small flex, people. Small flex. But that's kind of where the chapter closes out. And I want to thank you if you've made it this far. If you haven't already, like the video, comment down below, subscribe. I'm gonna wait. You subscribed? All right, appreciate you. Yeah, so be on the lookout, like I said earlier, for my reviews or my small little discussions. I don't think they're going to be anything in depth and long, because if you're new to my page, I've done those videos regarding the first chapters or the first few chapters that correlate to these episodes in the past. I don't have a lot of time to like rehash them as far as them being animated, but I will, just take some highlights from them, because man, the animations are crisp and it is clean. But as always, y'all be good, be blessed. I'll holla at y'all for the next couple of videos. You know what I'm saying? Peace.